Ashok Sajjanhar, I'm coming to you. When the visit of Nancy Pelosi was being talked about, there was much discussion and the controversy around it, and the Joe Biden administration also tried to maintain a certain degree of arm's distance. However, she went ahead with the visit. The US must have calculated the ramifications of it, what China is doing, maybe the degree to which you can't precisely guess, but the response from the Chinese was inevitable. The US would have calculated it, and in the days to come, how do you see an administration like the Biden administration responding to what is happening in Taiwan Strait?
You know, Anusha, there was no way that the United States could have backed down from this visit once discussions were taking place on it, because, you know, that would have been such a huge loss of face, and that would have really been seen to be, you know, committing harakiri, even as far as the whole notion of Indo-Pacific is concerned, the whole notion of the Quad is concerned, in terms of the South China Sea maintaining, you know, rule of law and freedom of navigation, freedom of overflights, etc. All that would have come crashing down, because if a power cannot even send one of its senior representatives to a country because of threats that are verbal threats that are sent out to it, then of course, you know, it will not be able to withstand any of the, when push comes to shove, it will really not be able to handle these things. So there was no way that the US could have resiled on the visit not taking place. That having been said, I think the United States and the world at large, knows and believes that this is no time that Xi Jinping will go to war. There is no way that he can go to war, because in November, you are going to have the Congress of the Communist Party of China, at which very significant decisions are to be made. The third term of Xi Jinping, which as president, which will come up next year, that is going to be decided at this Congress. So he wants to give this image of a powerful person, of a strong man who's in control of things. And if he were to sort of, go to war, the end of which, the result of which is uncertain, there is no way that he will go for it. So fine muscle flexing, he's been doing that. China has been doing that for quite some time. Over the last several months, we have seen that. So, he might push this envelope a little further without crossing really the red line of sort of, going into any sort of kinetic conflict or confrontation. But I think beyond that, it is not going to be anything more than that I can see. Of course, as far as economic sanctions are concerned, they have been used by many countries at many times. It is a two-way street. It works both ways. So, if it is going to hurt Taiwan, it will hurt China. There are huge investments that Taiwan has made in China. They are investments are moving out, they come out, and the economic situation in China is not pretty. The zero COVID policy is backfiring as far as Xi Jinping is concerned, and it is seen to be his project. His project also as far as the restrictions on technology, restrictions on education, the manner in which the real estate sector has been handled there, and the economic prosperity levels are coming down. So, this is all a matter of worry and going into this uncharted territory of a conflict, of a war, the end of which is uncertain. Definitely Xi Jinping is not going to go through it. So maybe some more of economic sanctions, a little more of muscle flexing, sending out a message to the ASEAN countries and to some of the others. Like in the case even of India, they have said one China policy is absolutely sacrosanct and so on and so forth. But I think when it talks about China, talks about its own territorial integrity, etc., I think it is the worst violator of territorial integrity.
And that is a view that has been shared by many experts in various countries. Raymond Vickery, I'm coming to you. Taking that point forward from Mr. Sajjanhar, do you agree that China at this point in time, due to various global and domestic reasons, cannot afford a full-fledged direct military confrontation? And if no, then will it be ready for this kind of confrontation in the next 12 to 24 months? Because as my colleague from CNN was pointing out, we need to see whether this is just a one-time posturing that China is doing by pointing missiles, or this would rather become more consistent over the next few months and years.
Well, thanks for having me. I think it's absolutely certain that this is a very difficult and dangerous time, not only for the United States, but India and the world. What is at stake here really is the rule of law that's enshrined in the UN Charter, that you don't use force in order to try to get somebody else's territory. India has a great stake in this. China claims Arunachal Pradesh, has said that visits by Indian officials to Arunachal Pradesh can be a provocation. In Kashmir, they have recognized or are using that territory in conjunction with Pakistan for their Belt and Road. So it's a very widespread principle here that is at stake. Now, coming to the commercial part of it, I would point out that China has a lot at stake here. Chinese exports to the United States have been the foundation of its prosperity. So they have to think twice before they're going to start a war and cut off the export market, which has made them rich. And I would point out that all of this is really tied to what Putin is doing in Ukraine. I have no doubt that Xi is looking at what is happening in Ukraine and seeing if Putin can get away with this, the use of force, the contravention of international law, then maybe Xi can get away with it, not only in regard to Taiwan, but the South China Sea, Arunachal Pradesh, and so forth. So it's a time to wage peace, and the United States and India need to stand together on all fronts, including the commercial front, in order to be able to wage peace and convince Xi that he shouldn't be another Putin and invade his neighbors and try to get his way by the use of force.
Okay. James Dorsey, I'm coming to you. How do you see what Raymond is pointing out? He's saying that perhaps what has happened in Ukraine, what Putin has done, has served an example for Xi Jinping. And while he might be constrained by a post-COVID economy, the troubles of getting once again the economy back on track and ensuring that people have jobs and their life is stable, to a larger Chinese expansionist policies that they've been talking about, whether it's here along the LAC in Arunachal Pradesh or multiple other fronts that the Chinese have opened.
There are 2 points I'd like to make. I agree with much that has been said. I think there's, in terms of the timing of a potential armed conflict, also another point. While the Chinese have